Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Post Crisis Chat. I am your co host. You call me Cookie. And with me, as always, is the ever present, ever hairy, ever lovely. Yeah, we can go with
Effervescent.
lovely. Vescent,
Effervescent.
vibrant, whatever you want to say.
Hi, I'm Randy. If you're a first time viewer, we want to welcome you. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification so you can be notified next week when we upload our next episode. And please comment. We got some real comments today. We're recording this on November 11th, Veterans Day. Thank you, veterans, for your service. No, we're recording this on November 11th, and we actually got somebody commenting on our newest video today. It was an awesome feeling, so please make comments.
Yes, we definitely appreciate those comments. And you know what? Liking the video, making the comments, all that kind of stuff, sharing the video, all those things seems like a small thing to do, but like every channel on YouTube will tell you, it does help us grow, helps the algorithm, all that stuff. So we definitely appreciate it. And if you're not a first time viewer, if you're the guy that commented, if you're, our Patreon supporter, we want to welcome you back. We appreciate having you here and we want to thank you.
Please do check out our socials. As Cookie mentioned, we have a Patreon. You can also find us on Blue Sky. Our patrons get access to the Post Crisis Chat Book Club, which is really cool. Cookie's about to tell you about it.
Yes, on the Post Crisis Chat Book Club, we will tell you a week ahead of time which issues we will be recording a show for, and that will give you a chance to comment on those issues. So if we get those comments, we can read them. I can't say live because I guess this technically isn't live, but we can, read them on the channel here for you.
Absolutely. Also, please be advised we are going to be talking about spoilers. These spoilers are roughly 40 ish years old. But, I want to let you know so nothing's unexpected. Today, we're going to be talking about issue 38, Saga of the Swamp Thing. It is written by Alan Moore, pencils by Stan Woch, or Woch, and inks by John Totlebon. I want to start with this amazing cover, okay? Let's talk about this. This cover was actually done by Stephen Bissette and John Totlebon together. And from what I've read, Bissette did the rough pencils on this, and then Totlebon did the finishing and inked it. And I don't know what this thing is in the upper portion of the image, but it scares the hell out of me. It seems to have flowers in its weird blue hair, which is interesting. And I think after reading the issue, the weird blue hair is actually a veil. I didn't realize that when I was originally looking at this and taking notes on it. There's all kinds of scary looking creatures around it. They're smaller than whatever this big giant thing is, taking up the top half of the page. And in the middle, almost looking like he is floating, is Swamp Thing. The faces on here are excellent. I think that might be Totalbon's finishes at work here, since they look so much better than anything I've seen Bissett do ever in Swamp Thing, honestly. I also want to note the colors
Uh,
did an amazing job on this cover. It works so well. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, it's a really good cover. It's definitely creepy because whatever that thing is very creepy. It actually kind of reminds me of an issue of Eric Larson's Savage Dragon, where there was kind of like a big demonish woman that appeared in one of the issues. And I always liked that issue because she was very creepy looking.
Mm.
It would be interesting. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not, but it'd be very interesting if like Larson got the inspiration for that character from this.
Yeah, it would. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about the cover?
No, you pretty much sum it. I mean, the coloring is very nice. I like how the outside of it, the outer side is like darker colors, even like the blue, except for the hair, the blues and the purples are a little bit kind of a darker shade. But then the brightness is coming from the skin of the whatever that thing is. I want to call Mama June, but I feel like that might be a little insulting to the creature in the comic. Also, Swamp Thing's coloring is just really good. I don't know if that's like a specific choice that they wanted to do to like draw your eye to the center focus of the two characters there, of like having the outer edges be kind of darker. That kind of feels like that was a specific choice on the colorist and the pencils.
Yeah, it's really good. Probably one of the best covers we've seen so far in the series. Kind of wish we
It's
had
very,
more.
very
Say again?
I agree. I wish we had a little bit more detail onto that, but it's very creepy. Like looking at it now, like after you said that, looking at the face, I'm actually a little creeped out by it.
Yes, me too. I'm sitting here in the dark. So we get into the main story now. Abby is sad that Swamp Thing is leaving to go find Constantine. If you want to know more about that, check out our last issue. And then the first bottom half of the page, we see a group of children running into the water to swim and play. And then we see Swamp Thing saying goodbye to Abby as the children continue to play.
I loved one of the things like I really like about Alan Moore is that even when the issue itself, I'll be honest, and I don't want to spoil my rating at the end, but the issue was kind of like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. It kind of felt like again a little bit of a filler before whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But what makes it so good is like the words he uses. He writes in a very poetic way when he's describing stuff, and that's really what kind of makes this issue. And even on this, when he's talking about the kids in the water, and you kind of, even though you don't care about the kids, you kind of like you're still interested because of the way he's describing things.
Exactly. It is because you want to know what's happening, what's going on. And I don't know about you, but when I saw these kids, I initially assumed they were going to play in the swamp where Swamp Thing and Abby are down in Louisiana. As we're going to find out in a little bit, that's not the case. But I feel like that was some really good storytelling on the part of Alan Moore. Now, I also want to talk about this panel kind of in the middle where Swamp Thing has got his back turned, he's leaning against a tree. Abby's towards the camera. She's very sad. This panel is so well done in the context of the comic book page. This artist that we've got doing this, Stan Woke, he is just wow. I mean, this page is so well constructed with that panel in the middle. The look on Abby's face, you can tell what her expression is, which is what her feelings are, which is more than we usually get from Bissette. And then Swamp Thing in the back, obviously, he looks kind of fed up with Abby. And he's probably a little sad too. And I love this one panel.
I agree. I think the layout of this page is really well done, even from the first panel with the silhouette of Abby sitting in the shadows of like the swamp and stuff, and you got the colorful background of the sky, and then just like the breakdowns of how you get the kids' feet, and then you go to your favorite panel, which I think that panel is really well done. It's one of those things of like one of the cool things about comics is one of the things I like about like cartoons, like old Looney Tunes cartoons, and it's a two-part process of like you've got your story and you've got your art, and if it's done right, then you can actually read the story without the art, or you can see the story without the words. And I feel like the way this page is laid out, you wouldn't even need the word, the way that everything's being conveyed, the emotion and such. They did a really good job with that. And that's one of the special things about comic books is that they can do that really, really well.
100%. And I'll be honest, sometimes when I'm reading comics, if I'm bored by the dialogue, which happens a lot, especially with some earlier comics, the earlier you go in comics history, the more dialogue there is. I'll actually start skipping some of the dialogue and just paying attention to the panels. And if the artist has done their job, I actually don't need that much dialogue. It's great. I don't want to digress. Let's move on. So Swamp Thing explains to Abby that he will let his body die here and grow a new one near Chicago. He asked her to stay and watch, which at first when I read that, that was kind of weird to me. But then the more I thought about it, the more I feel like it's kind of comforting. You know, if you're about to die, Swamp Thing knows he's coming back, but still, he's probably got that human mindset a little bit of being afraid to die still, because he's basically just a ghost inside a plant shell, and he kind of remembers that fear. So I guess I can see how it can be kind of comforting when you know you're dying to have someone with you. Not as weird as I first thought.
That does make sense. Like when you put it in that context, I guess it does kind of make sense. I thought it was a little weird too because it's an odd request. I took it more as a loving thing of it. He wanted her there. To, hey, I'm going, but I want you to stay with me as I'm going. Maybe spend as much time together before this happens. But I could see your point of view too. Either way, it comes off he's oblivious to Abby's feelings at the moment that she is not happy with him.
Awkward.
Definitely, definitely awkward.
Then Abby says no, she has to go to work, which we continue to be awkward there. And the boys continue to play in the water as Abby and Swamp Thing part awkwardly. I do like how narrator says that they both love each other, but at the same time they also hate themselves for being so unfair to the other person. but it just shows how much they actually support each other and also care about how much the other person feels. But they are also confident enough in themselves to know that they want to take action to get where they want to be, which actually seems kind of rare for Abby to feel this way. And I think it seems to be a newfound confidence in her. And I think that newfound confidence looks good on her, honestly.
Oh, definitely. It kind of hits home in the sense of like anybody who's ever been in a relationship understands exactly what's happening here. There's times you have to do something you don't want to, and then your partner doesn't want you to do it. But there's that little conflict of, well, are you choosing let's say the job over me or something like that? And it's that feeling of, yeah, you don't love the person any less, but you recognize you're being selfish. You want that person at that moment and they can't be there. And so there's a little bit of, I guess you say, resentment at the time. I thought that was kind of well written of it definitely touches on something like everybody can have that emotion, that feeling.
You're absolutely right. And I think both the artist and Alan Moore did a really good job of drawing us into it, making us feel for Abby and Swamp Thing and the tough choices that they're having to make. It's exactly like you said. Anybody who's been in a relationship has been there. So then we actually go back to the boys playing in the water again. One of the boys finds a leech on himself. All the boys bail out of the water except for Nikki. Nikki seems to be floating in the water and looking kind of pale and unresponsive, especially in that last panel. Now, something I didn't pick up on the first time, and it's not in my notes, but I was looking at the panel, and in those first four panels, you can actually see the blood being drained from Nikki as he gets paler and paler as the panels go on. And I didn't catch that the first time around. And that, brilliant work by the colors. Brilliant.
I didn't catch it either. Exactly the same as you. Like I read it before we started recording, so it would be fresh in my brain. And I completely skipped over that. Like it did not even register in my brain until I was looking at it now. I just gotta say, to me, that's one of the good signs of a really good comic book. Of like if you can go back to it and you start to pick up stuff you didn't even recognize the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. You're still getting something out of it. And that last panel, that to me is what the last panel was to you. I really like the way that that's drawn with Nikki in the water, and he's so pale, and it's just the detail on Nikki looks really, really solid. The shading that the artist did on this was really, really good.
And I'm going to take a minute to crap on Bissett again because the face would not have been anywhere near that good if that had been Bissett. I really don't like the
Poor
guy's art
Bissett.
on Swamp Thing. Most of it's just not good. Sorry, I know I keep harping, but it's just this is so much better, and I love it so much more because it is so much better. We move on.
It's got it's.
Oh, sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
gonna say it's got its moments. I'm not gonna say like this is the best artist I've seen on Swamp Thing since we've started reading it, but it's got its moments that it's really, really good.
Then we go to the next page and we see what appears to be Nazi vampires feeding on Nikki's flesh under the water. So we can see, what's actively happening to him. The art on this page is absolutely gorgeous. I also want to point out the detail of the leech attached to the fish at the bottom right portion of the page. The colors did a stunning job here too. 10 of 10 for this page, no notes.
I have one note, only one note. I understand what the artist was trying to do with the vampires sucking the blood out of Nikki, but the placement of one of the vampires honestly looks like he's sucking on Nikki's butt.
He's very clearly above the swim trunks line.
He's close though. He's hovering just right above it. I mean, he's getting a little bit of crack in there.
Agree to disagree on that one. On the next page, we get to the boys discussing what is going on with Nikki. They think they see something under the water. The captions note that the vampires live underwater because it is night forever below the surface. This is a really unique vampire concept that I don't recall seeing anywhere else, so I wanted to applaud Mr. Moore on that. That's a really good idea. That's equally as good as vampires living in Alaska 6 months out of the year because it's dark there.
Yeah, really have to give him credit on that. Like, I'm surprised nobody ever thought of that before. But sometimes that's kind of the cool part of the creative process is that every now and then you may have an idea that pops up in your head that nobody has ever even considered using that idea before. And it seems
Yeah.
like such a basic, simple idea.
Yeah, great idea on the part of Moore. The boys debate whether or not to pull Nikki out. They ultimately decide to run away. In the final panel, we see the vampires talk about how they are going back down into the deeper water where the green becomes black. Could this be where the inspiration for the black being in opposition to the green came from? Because the black is something that doesn't become a concept for a little while, but I think it could have come from this page.
It could have been. I don't think Moore was the one that created the black. I don't remember, was he the one that started that or not?
I don't think so, but I think whoever did was inspired by this.
Makes sense because a lot over the last probably 20 years, they have been milking Alan Moore for pretty much everything. Blackest Night literally came from an Alan Moore concept that was a throwaway line in a Green Lantern issue.
Yep, I've heard that.
It seems like he was the king of like throw a random idea out there and then they'll just run with and turn it into something.
The vampires continue into the deeper waters to the drowned town, as it is called. We see an entire town underwater, and we see that this town was once Rosewood, Illinois, where Constantine asked Swamp Thing to meet him. We are told that the vampires call this area home.
The page layout wasn't terrible, but it wasn't as good as the last splash page. I have no idea the technical term for that off the top of my head. I'm having a night.
We
I
both
thought
are.
the reveal of the Rosewood was intriguing because it feels like we're getting that slow build towards Rosewood has an important significance to Swamp Thing specifically for some reason. And obviously we're going to figure it out, but I like the slow build to what does this have to do with anything?
Right.
However, I will throw out there maybe longtime readers know about this and like we're just kind of
I bet
like
they do.
thrown into it because we don't.
I absolutely bet they do. I agree that this page feels a little more rushed and a little more sloppy to me. But at the same time, this is also underwater, so it's supposed to maybe be a little more blurry. The water is maybe moving a little bit, and maybe it fits here. I think it probably was rushed a little bit, but I also see a lot of detail in the town, a lot of individual windows. And so while it's rushed, I still think the artist did a really good job, and I think the sloppiness of it at least to me, conveys the fact that it's underwater.
To me, it was just the layout of the page was like, I don't know what the thing is that's breaking the page into three panels. I don't know if that's supposed to be a vine, seaweed. Is it a leech? Is it just like,
Well, there's very clearly a lizard right below the stop sign.
oh yeah, okay, I see that.
A little, as you follow that on up, whatever that is at the top looks like it has a lot of teeth and big eyes.
Huh, okay. I mean, I'm still unclear as to what it is, but that does kind of make it a little bit more interesting. I don't know. It didn't jump out to me at the time, but now I'm looking at the detail of it and like, okay, it's a little bit better. I don't know. Sometimes when you get creative with panels like that, it can get a little challenging.
I agree. And the composition of this page is not as good as the previous one we talked about. Next, we get a nice two-page spread. Swamp Thing looking amazing in the first panel. I really like the star in his eye, the reflection. Swamp Thing travels. He thinks he's heard the name of Rosewood before. He thinks it might be in Alec Holland's memories. Then Swamp Thing remembers a dark presence came to the town. Someone had blown the dam on the town, and the running water had destroyed whatever the dark presence was. It turned the pale things to bitter dust. Me being a Dungeons and Dragons fan, one thing you know about vampires in Dungeons and Dragons is the running water is the way you kill vampires. And it also is true in some fiction, although I don't remember them ever touching upon that in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I've honestly never heard that before, running water. I'm assuming because when they go to dust, the running water will scatter the ashes. Is that what that is?
I'm not sure. It's just a thing I've always heard. If you know where vampires being killed by running water came from, the etymology of that, please let us know in the comments. I would love to know more about where that came from. Swamp Thing finds a seed in Rosewood and uses it to start growing himself. He seems to be growing much faster than his previous bodies incarnation. I really like that he's learning and getting better at using his powers. I like how that shows that.
I agree. I like that it feels like almost like a muscle. The more he's doing it, the better he's getting at it, and so that's kind of a slow build to maybe later on he's just going to be like instantaneously popping up in places. So
That'd be
that to
cool
me is
if
kind of a
that's where we're
cool.
going.
I would enjoy that. I think that would be kind of cool, especially like I said, the slow build because nowadays you see like they kind of rush those things, those concepts a little too quickly.
Abby is having a discussion with her coworker while we see Swamp Thing growing. Abby is having problems paying attention, being worried about Swamp Thing. Abby's coworker thinks Abby is thinking about her husband.
It's interesting. Like this is one of the few books that I've read in quite a while, like ever really, where you're not getting a lot of backstory or anything like the supporting characters. The supporting characters don't really exist in this book. It's mainly Swamp Thing, Abby, and then whatever like villain of the week or guest star or whatever shows up. That's pretty much it. There's not really a supporting cast to this comic.
I agree, and I feel like I've never seen this woman before that Abby's talking to, her coworker.
I honestly could not tell you if I have seen her before or not. I feel like maybe she's popped up before. Like I don't know if she's the boss that we've seen in like I want to say like maybe 6, 7 issues ago. I couldn't tell you for sure because there's not a lot of focus. So
I really like how after her coworker says, Abby, sooner or later you're gonna have to face facts. Your husband's a vegetable. Abby looks up and she's like, "Wait, how did you know I'm hooking up with a plant?" But then stops before she says anything and realizes that her coworker was talking about Matt, her husband, who was in the hospital. If you'd like to know how he got in the hospital, watch our earlier episodes. We go over all that in detail. And then we switch to Constantine, who is in a bar. Someone is telling him it's not easy losing someone. Constantine is mourning the death of Emma. See more on our last episode for that. The scene is intersected with Abby being alone and brooding. A man calls Constantine a quote Fruit Loop while grabbing Constantine's shoulder.
I like the upper part of it, the last panel with inner like twining Constantine was saying with how it relates to what's happening with Abby at the moment. I thought that was kind of a cool little, I don't want to say contradiction, that's not the word I'm looking for, but oh, contrast. That's the word I'm looking for. A
Yeah,
little bit like a
yeah, it's
contrast between the two.
I didn't pick that up before, but yeah, that's really good. I'll give more credit for that. That's really good.
The Fruit Loop line was kind of funny to me just because that's definitely totally 80s right there. Like
Yes,
that's not
and
even not even an insult really.
and we see Constantine's friend who is totally dressed in '80s biker gear. Like that outfit is doing a lot of work.
I was yeah, that takes me back to the days of like bad 80s, 90s movies and stuff. If you just see that those villains that are just you would not see that today because people have good taste.
Next, we see Constantine staring the man down as Constantine breaks a bottle with his bare hands. At this point, between breaking the bottle with his bare hands and Constantine staring the man down, the man who calls Constantine a Fruit Loop seems to be incredibly afraid of Constantine. And I love how just like the gravitas of Constantine comes across in this, you can see the man suddenly get afraid, and all Constantine did was break a bottle and look at him. That was it. And the guy's like, "Oh, yo, I messed up. I'm sorry. Let me buy you a beer."
I want to say like probably people like that that act tough. The moment you see somebody break a bottle in their bare hands and not even react to it, that's probably going to kind of make you rethink your choices there for a second because that's a real tough man move right there.
It really is. Then we switch back to the boys who were swimming previously. One of the kids is telling the other boys that they need to tell someone what happened to Nikki. The other boys disagree. They are worried about getting in trouble. The boys continue to debate whether or not they saw something under the water. This page was a little long for my taste, a little more than I wanted to see, but whatever, we needed to fill out the story.
The two things that to me resonated with this were the first part that was like not it was like whatever, but I think growing up I had friends like that that were they acted like your friend, but if you got in trouble, they were the first to split and run and be like, no, we're not covering your butt at all. You are not we're not going to take that bullet for you. That I kind of liked because it did take me back to my childhood a little bit of like, okay, I kind of get that feeling. And then the one kid trying to stand up, you're like, no, this is he's our friend. We shouldn't be leaving him. The main thing that kind of stuck to me was the Constantine panels with the blood dripping from his hand and the three circular panels all the way. You just see it dripping all the way down to the floor. I thought that was a really, really good layout and delivery on that panel.
It was interesting. I don't know that I needed to see it. I don't know. I get what you're saying. The layout is very interesting. I just the subject matter is I don't know. This feels like just a filler page to me. My opinion. Maybe you
It,
disagree. Let me know if you do in the comments.
so the only thing I could see, and this is literally me stretching, is like grasping at straws here. But could it be foreshadowing what is to come with the blood dripping from Constantine to the floor? Is that something like almost like a foreshadowing of what is to happen, especially how it's lined up with the boys talking about the fate of Nikki, what's going to happen? And it kind of feels like maybe that could be what they were going for. I don't know for sure. I'm definitely just grasping at straws here.
Sure, I get where you're coming from. I'm meh on this page. The next half page, the boys continue to debate whether or not to tell an adult. Maybe the cops what happened. Good call, kids. Not wanting to go to the cops. Cops are not your friend. Good job. They would have blamed one of you and
The
then had
view
the rest of you turn on him.
The views and subjects coming from my co-host do not necessarily represent all of us here at Post Crisis Chat.
The other half of the page is showing some underwater scenes from the vampire town. One of the boys decides to go ahead and get Nikki. He calls the other boy Slime for not coming with him. And then see the vampires finding a veil that we saw on the cover. I wonder what that veil could be for. Hmm.
We can build up the tension, but if anybody has read this with us, it's literally on the next page.
It is. Next, we get a whole page of vampires. We see that they are preparing Mother for something, perhaps a wedding, giving the veil. They are guiding her out to meet death now that she is dressed for it, the narrator tells us. I just want to pause and talk about the art again. The creature they call Mother looks truly grotesque. Underwater, pale, so bloated that she can't even move on her own. I mean, this is just excellent.
They did a really good job of making you just ugh. But also, to me, the writing did a really good job of making me kind of sympathize for her. I believe it was on this page where we kind of learn her backstory a tiny bit.
She can't even go move to feed. They have to cut their own palms and give her blood so that she can continue to live. I mean, it's a sad state for her, but it seems to be where she wants to be.
That's kind of what I took from it too.
The caption on the next page tells us Mother is headed for the birth of a new being. Juxtaposed on the panel is Swamp Thing waking up in his new body. I love the connection we get there between Mother and Swamp Thing. We see the captions telling us a dark millennium will fall and the world will be a different place. It will require a quote different species. The hateful sun will be shut out. The fabulous life forms will flourish. And I had a thought. Fabulous life forms? Do these vampires sparkle? Is this where Stephanie Meyer got her sparkly vampires from?
I sincerely hope not. If Stephanie Meyer is a Alan Moore fan, I may have to reconsider some things in my life.
Next, we see Swamp Thing fully developed in his new body. He has reached his destination. He notes that last time his regrowth took weeks. This time it only took hours. He is getting better and faster at it. We see Constantine greet Swamp Thing and note that Swamp Thing took a long time to get there. So it's like Swamp Thing's all proud of himself. Look, look, I did it. I did it really fast. And Constantine's like, what the hell took you so long?
I kind of feel like Constantine would be a crappy parent because he's trying to potty train his kid, and his kid comes out and be like, "Yay, I finally went poop." Constantine would just be lighting a cigarette, just being like, "Yeah, what do you want? A cookie for that?"
Spoiler alert, in modern comics, Constantine is a dad. And he's actually a pretty good one. but we'll get there someday. Constantine tells Swamp Thing he is now Swamp Thing's manager. Constantine brought Swamp Thing to Rosewood to clean up the mess that Swamp Thing left behind. Could it be that Swamp Thing was the one who exploded the dam and that's why he can remember what happened? From the context clues, it does look like Swamp Thing is the one who did that. Constantine tells Swamp Thing that Swamp Thing did not destroy all of the creatures, that there were some left in the airtight freezer units of the supermarket. Once again, Alan Moore coming out with a concept that's really interesting and relevant to this situation that I've never seen before. Vampires protected because they were in an airtight room.
Now, after you told me the thing about the running water, now it kind of makes a little bit more sense because at the time I was thinking, well, they don't need to breathe, so if you drown the town, what does it matter? Like, okay, who cares? But now that kind of makes sense of okay, the running water thing, so they still kind of had to have some shelter from the raging river that was coming through and destroying the town.
Next, we cut back to the boy looking for his friend Nikki. The boy is alone. In between panels of the boy, we see Swamp Thing and Constantine talking. Constantine says vampires don't need air. The virus that causes vampires doesn't even like oxygen. The boy going back for Nikki seems scared. Then Constantine tells Swamp Thing the reason stakes work on vampires is they let air into the vampire's bloodstream. Something dripping wet greets the boy, who we learn his name is Howard. Constantine goes on to tell Swamp Thing what we already know. Vampires are living in Rosewood, breeding and forming a stable community. The stable community part seems to scare Constantine the most.
That would make sense. A stable community of vampires would probably be pretty dangerous. A community of vampires alone would be freaky and dangerous. I found it interesting though with the oxygen. That for some reason really stuck with me of the vampires not liking oxygen. I was like, I've never heard that before. And the idea of the stake letting in oxygen to the bloodstream, that's another concept that I've never heard of before that I found really fascinating.
I've never heard of that being how the stake kills vampires. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like that idea because there's so many problems that introduces when you look at vampire fiction from across the years, from Dracula on up to modern vampire shows that we watch today. It just doesn't make sense. In the traditional folklore, the reason that you staked a vampire down was to keep him from rising again, because you open his coffin, you drive the stake in, it holds him down so he can't get back up. Also, in original vampire lore, just driving a stake into the heart of a vampire does not kill him. Buffy aside, it's the holding down so he can't escape the coffin, so he can't go feed. That's why stakes work against vampires, and I don't like this change. It's a minor nitpick. 100% minor nitpick. It's just something I didn't like.
It is interesting. Obviously, that just kind of came around, I'm assuming, through Hollywood because it just makes it more presentable to an audience to have the vampire get staked and then turn to dust. You're going to kill a vampire traditional way. I don't even believe you kill them. It's just that you have to behead them and then you stuff their mouth with garlic and then put it at their feet, I believe, was with the original folklore from what I read.
That sounds about right. I agree. I think the whole Buffy staking a vampire and it turning to dust thing was just to make things more exciting, have more action on the screen. So, and I guess I never really complained about that, and it wasn't the right way to stake a vampire either. So, I, like I said, minor nitpicks. Next, we see Nicky screams as he's being dragged into the water. See captions telling us that mother smiles knowing her offspring will not go hungry. Mother is led to, quote, the birthing place where someone is standing and waiting for her. She drifts towards her lover, propelled by the other vampires that dragged her here because she cannot move on her own. And then at that point, we switch back to Howard, the boy who is going back for Nikki, and his head is almost below the water.
I have kind of a creepy feeling about where Moore is taking us on this journey. I know him well enough as a writer to know that this is probably not going to end very well.
Hmm.
And as we turn to the next page, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be proven true.
When we go into the next page, the vampires watch as Mother goes into convulsions. The captions tell us Mother and her lover have opened their bodies to oxygen bearing water. The couple have apparently sacrificed themselves to trigger what will happen next. Constantine and Swamp Thing are then arguing over whether or not Constantine is going to give Swamp Thing more answers, because that's the whole reason Swamp Thing came here in the first place. He wanted answers about who he is and what he is, and Constantine knows things that he won't tell Swamp Thing. Constantine tells Swamp Thing to take care of business here in Rosewood, and then perhaps they can talk. Constantine is kind of a jerk here. I kind of love it. I do. And I also like the fact that Constantine is holding Swamp Thing responsible for the mess that he created. Maybe not the mess that he created so much, but the mess that he didn't finish cleaning up. I like that. And Constantine is all, do the thing for me, and if you're lucky, I'll do the thing back for you. I love how Constantine embraces his inner scumbag.
Yeah, he's a jerk and he's basically proud of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's one of the unique qualities about Constantine. I only have three things to say of this page. One, the thing I was talking about, I was like, all right, it's coming, no pun intended. We literally get the line of a single whiplash of white in the blackness, and it is complete. That's that Alan Moore thing. I was like, all right, man, we know what you're talking about. And we know you're basically trying to push the editor's buttons of like, how far can you take this stuff? And he's
Yeah.
taken it pretty far. I do like the Sid Lives tattoo on
Mm.
the punk rock vampire. I thought that was kind of cool. And then the panel of the vampires basically disintegrating, where it's almost a skeletal image. It takes me back to the movie Return of the Living Dead.
Mm. I see where you're coming from with that. It's very in line with that movie. Next, the vampires are talking about eggs. I assumed originally that it was water that was bloating up Mother, but no, it was a massive amount of eggs. Awesome and gross. The eggs are called New Life, and we see them start to hatch. I love the panel where it's got the pale arm reaching out with the hand ending in claws just coming right up out of the egg. The it begins right there. I think the composition of that panel is just phenomenal.
It definitely gives off a creepy vibe. This whole page, actually, with the vampires kind of holding hands above the eggs. I don't know why that gives off a creepy vibe to me, but it does. And then, of course, the eggs hatching with the white arm coming out. The only one that was kind of throwing me a little bit, even though it was a well drawn panel, was Swamp Thing holding up Constantine because it almost looks like he's about to hug him.
That doesn't look like a hug to me at all. That looks threatening. And even though Swamp Thing is like threatening Constantine, Constantine's like, well, because he's so confident in that. That confidence level that he has, even though he's being picked up by this giant monster who's probably like 7, 8 feet tall and obviously being threatened, Constantine's like, nah, dude, you got to fix your mess. This is your responsibility. Get to it.
Which honestly makes perfect sense. Even though Constantine is being a jerk about stuff, he's got a really good point. Swamp Thing essentially created this problem. He needs to fix it.
I want to point out as we go to the next page, you see Swamp Thing is just throwing Constantine down, turning around and walking into the water to fix the mess that he made. And I love that middle panel where Constantine is sighing in relief. He's got his arm on his forehead, and he was confident and he exuded confidence, but he also wasn't sure that Swamp Thing was going to actually do it. And this is like a moment of humanity for Constantine, where he's showing obvious relief that Swamp Thing is gonna do what Constantine wanted him to do.
Definitely one of those rare moments where you kind of get to see the more human side to Constantine. I guess human side in the sense of like a vulnerable side of almost fear. You hardly ever see Constantine showing fear. I like that because even the second to last panel where you get the close up of his face, it almost looks like beads of sweat on his face, like he's a little bit worried.
I think that's exactly what they're trying to get across. His adrenaline was going, and he's having to come down off of that. The sweat's coming in to help cool his body down after that adrenaline rush that he got.
Oh, definitely.
The art on this issue, it was top notch. It wasn't quite as good as Rick Vetch's art in the previous issue, but it was damn close. Constantine wanting Swamp Thing to kill Nazi vampires, I am here for it, baby. That's amazing. It was a great introduction to what appears to be a much larger story in the long run. And I'm looking forward to watching Swamp Thing kill a bunch of vampires.
I can't honestly call them Nazi vampires just because there was one specific thing that maybe was a Nazi symbol, but even then, that's a matter of interpretation. I took them just more like punk rock vampires than
I
anything
disagree
else.
because the vampire had a very clearly an Nazi symbol, but not worth going into details on that part. I give the issue a 4 out of 5 vampire mothers bursting with eggs. What about you?
Probably go about 3.5 on this one. The art wasn't as good as the last issue, but it wasn't terrible. I thought they did a really good job on the artwork. It felt a little bit like, okay, this is another, I don't want to say filler issue, but it's like they're stretching this storyline out. So that's kind of where I was like, okay, this is more of a build up to whatever is coming. And I'm getting impatient. All right, I want to see what's coming.
Well, you are going to have to be patient because I happen to know what's coming isn't going to happen until issue 50. So we are still 11 issues away. They did say it was going to take a year in the previous issues. We're looking at 12 issues. Just like they said, it's going to build up over a year.
I guess if we have to wait, we have to wait. But man, I don't know.
Luckily, you and I only have to wait a week to record the next episode. And we'll be, what, 11 weeks till we find out for sure? But still, that's a lot more compressed timeline than all the other people had to wait when this was originally coming out.
If I was reading this on a monthly timetable, I would start to be going nuts a little bit. Like, all right, this is really dragging out. What is coming? That would probably kill me.
Yeah, I might have done a wait for the trades with this one, and I don't even think they were making trades back then when this came out. Or maybe they were just starting. It wasn't a regular thing yet.
Actually, that's a really good question. I don't know. This was 84, so I don't know what was going on with trades at the time.
People in the comments can correct me if I'm wrong. From my understanding, what really started trade paperbacks becoming a big thing was the collected edition of Alan Moore's Watchmen. When they started collecting that, they started realizing that they could sell issues over and over and over again after the fact because of how popular that collection got. Now, there might have been collections before that, but this was the first time that they really started doing trades for a lot of things.
That could be true. That's actually very interesting. I would be curious to know about that. If anyone knows, like pop it in the comments. I don't know that much about comic book history. I do have one thing I want to point out, and I meant to point this out last episode too. This has popped up again. I'm reading obviously the single issues of Swamp Thing because I'm a traditionalist and not like a little, oh, I have to have the collected editions like, certain co-hosts here.
Hey, my coloring in the collected edition is way better than the coloring you're dealing with. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm dealing with old school comics. I thought this was kind of cool. In this issue, they have a thing for the magazine Amazing Heroes, and they have the top 10 voted books of 1984 from Amazing Heroes. Number one being Swamp Thing.
Interesting.
And then number four is Teen Titans, which is another book I'm really looking forward to us getting to at some point. The other two, I know of them, but I've never read them. So I don't know if they show up on our list or if people want us to read them. I would be interested to check them out. You got Blue Devil and Atari Force. I don't know exactly. I know a little bit about Blue Devil, but not a lot. And
I've
that could
heard
be
the
kind of
name
a fun
before,
read
but
at some
that's
point.
all I can say about Blue Devil.
Yeah, I think he's had some dealings with Swamp Thing at some point. Hopefully he does show up at some point because I would be interested to know more about Blue Devil.
Well, we're going to find out as we continue to read Swamp Thing.
I like little things like that, so I'm going to point them out from time to time. I'm done rambling, so I just want to go ahead and thank everyone for joining us tonight and for putting up with us and my bad lighting. I apologize. We are really glad that you're here watching with us. We appreciate it because we do this for the love of the comics medium, and if you love comics as well, then we're glad to have you.
Absolutely. I want people to see this YouTube channel as sitting around and discussing comics at the store with your friends because Cookie and I have been friends for more than a decade now through our shared love of comics, Dungeons and Dragons, and all that other nerdy stuff. So please join us on our Patreon where we have our post crisis chat book club for our members. We let our Patreons get their say on the book, and we'll read some of those comments on the channel when we record.
Also, don't forget to check the description for the links to our Amazon affiliate page. If you go there, you can pick up the book we are currently reading tonight in various formats. Got like a lot of different formats you can get it from. He just showed you the trade. There's a collected edition of like Alan Moore's entire run, which is awesome apparently. I'm cheap, don't own it. Hopefully one day I will. There's omnibuses out there. There's absolute editions. And then if you're like me and you want to go out to your local comic book store and find the single issues, you can do that too. Just own the comic books is what we're saying here. But the cool part is if you click on the Amazon affiliate, we get a little bit of that money, a little bit of that kickback comes back to us. And the cool part is it doesn't cost you any extra, but we get the money.
Absolutely. And you can follow us on Blue Sky. The link is in the description. We'll be announcing there when we post new episodes. And if you could like this video, give the channel a subscribe and comment on the video as soon as you see it. These things are really important to help the channel grow.
Yes. Lastly, I got to give a big shout out to our editor, the Nacho King.
Yes, dude, we could not do this without you. Those of you who see the edited version of the video don't realize how much we truly screw up while we're recording this. These videos are probably twice as long as what you end up seeing on YouTube, and you don't have to see us repeating ourselves over and over and over again because we've got Nacho King who helps us edit these videos down to a reasonable length and makes us look less like fools as much as that's possible because we do a really good job of doing it ourselves.
Oh yeah. To pull back the curtain a little bit, we've been yapping for like over an hour, like probably an hour and a half. So
Poor Nacho King has to listen to all of it in order to figure out what to cut out.
that's really sad for him. I guess if that's our show, we just go ahead and go off with our current sign off phrase of may your fruit hang low and your jungle always be trimmed.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.